Hello and welcome to our analysis of iCAT 14, the mock which introduces you to the second half of the preparation as far as the All India national level mocks in our test series are concerned. You would have taken 13 mocks so far, and in the last 2 or 3 mocks, that's from iCAT's 11 to 13, we got a lot of feedback from students saying that this was slightly on the easier side. Why was it so? So there the logic was that we were actually exposing the student to the easy or standard actual level CAT but with differing sectional difficulties. That is where we were giving him various combinations. We had already planned that iCAT 14 would be the mock that would shock the student and bring him out of his comfort zone. So as you can see, iCAT 14 is the toughest mock by far as the entire test series is concerned up to this stage. No other mock has reached this level. Now obviously when I have such a tough mock, my overall attempts and score cannot be at par with what I would expect in an average mock. They also need to go down by 10 to 20%. We'll look at this aspect a few minutes later. Let's now look at each section in isolation. Let's start with verbal ability. Typically it's of moderate difficulty with say an average LOD of 1.9. Yeah, before progressing ahead, let me tell you what LOD and 1.9 means. We assign a value or a difficulty level of 1, 2 or 3 to each question from easy to difficult. So the average LOD of a question or a section or a mock is the difficulty level of that part. So verbal ability had a difficulty level of 2.24 or 2.25 roughly. If you look at the overall difficulty of verbal in the CAT, it's around 1.9, which means that I'm staring at a verbal section that's nearly 18 to 20% more difficult than what I would see in CAT. The verbal sections in the last couple of papers were actually at par with CAT or marginally difficult or marginally simpler. So this is an outlier, significantly tougher than CAT. How do I tackle such a verbal section? As always, we had 6 RCs, so 2 RCs of 6 questions, 4 RCs of 3 questions. Which one should I have attempted? In the last mock, we told you that there was a bell curve, 4 moderate, 1 easy, 1 tough. Here again there was a bell curve. So then the section should not have been so tough, right? The last one was LOD 2. Why is this LOD 2.25? Look at the topics that were asked. And I'll just read out the broad topics and you can take a guess yourself. Greek mythology, psychology, existentialist thought, Russian Revolution, literature, and Buddhist teachings. Now if you look at all of these, it looks as if you've entered an arts class. So for normal readers or people who are not very good readers or even for average guys, this would be a set of very difficult areas to comprehend. That is where, even though the question might not be difficult, the density of the reading makes this section very difficult. The topic selection here is deliberately tough to expose you to a very tough verbal section. Having said that, within this section there was one easy RC. Of course, when I say easy, it's easier than the rest. So there was one easy RC on psychology. The RC on existentialist thought was difficult by itself. This topic is tough. The questions were also tough, so that should have been left. The others were moderate. The 6 question RC on psychology should have been solved. Of the remaining moderate RCs, you could have tried and solved the 1-2 questions that came to your mind. In general, I would say 10 to 11 attempts in the RCs would have been a very good performance as far as this mock is concerned. Coming to the non-RC questions, that's the numerical entry or theta questions, we had the typical jumbled sentences, contextual odd man out and para summaries. But if you note, you had no easy questions in this part. So there were tough para summaries and moderate to tough para jumbles as well as contextual odd man out questions. So what do you attempt? You might have been able to attempt a one odd or two questions here and there. Broadly, if I look at this section, I would have had close to 10 to 11 RC attempts and one or two good numerical entry attempts. In general, my good attempts for this mock would not go beyond 12 to 13. 12 would be more realistic, 13 would be optimal. Let's now move on to the next section. So just to keep in mind, this was the toughest verbal you would have encountered in the first 14 mocks. Keeping this in mind, now let's move on to DILR. The DILR here, again toughest within this mock. It was the second toughest DILR section as far as the mocks were concerned. There was only one other mock which had a DILR section which was as tough or tougher. Here the average LOD was 2.4. Again 10% more than what you can expect in CAT. So you had a significantly tougher verbal, significantly tougher DI. Generally in this kind of a thing, you won't be able to cross the 16 to 18 attempts the 16 to 18 attempt target that we give people. So here question selection becomes extremely critical. You need to go through each set and identify those one or two sets that are the easiest to solve and try and get those 8 questions first. Which were those two sets here? There was one set on letter based addition where there was 3 terms in the LHS and 1 on the RHS. Lengthy, but yes, this could have been solved. Then there was one set on ships, their captains, the name of the ship, the typical matrix based complex arrangement set. Not easy, lot of cases inside it, but at the end of the set you would arrive at a final table. That is always helpful in answering those 4 questions. You also had one set where you had 8 teams and their performance in 5 rounds, again lengthy. But these 3 sets is what I would have really targeted in the paper, because this would have given me 11 to 12 very good attempts in close to 45 to 50 minutes. They would have all taken time, no doubt about that. But I would have got these 11 to 12 questions, so anywhere between 30 to 35 marks simply from these 3. Then I would not have had to look at anything else. Having done this, there were 2 other sets that you could have looked at if you didn't get these 3 right. There was one on 7 cars in a straight line, very tempting set, but it was entirely conditional. So at the most you could have done 2 questions here. And one on pigments, which was a logical condition set, again conditional, so you could have done a couple of questions. On the whole, how many attempts would you have had? Realistically, a student would have had 12. Ideally, I would have said try and reach 15. But having said 15, I would still revise my own opinion and say that 12 attempts would be a good performance as far as this mock is concerned. So when you look at this analysis, you might read 15, but please go by my words and say that 12 to 13 is a more realistic assessment. Finally, we come to quant, which is typically the easiest section in CAT as well as the easiest section in mock. Here, the difficulty was close to 1.9. Again, more than 10% tougher than what you will find in the exam. So this was a mock where each section was significantly tougher than the actual exam. So this was more of a challenge paper. In a typical CAT, I will have 11 to 12 easy questions or sitters. Here, with a lot of difficulty, I was able to find 10 such questions that you could have attempted. Again, finding these was not very easy. You might have found 1 or 2 of these difficult. What I found was there was a small trend that questions 72 to 78 had some 4 or 5 questions of this type, and questions 87 to 91 again had 4 questions of this type. So there were 2 very small chunks which had easy questions. Everything else was spread out. Plus, I noticed that at least 7 out of these 10 questions that I marked were from modern math and arithmetic. Modern math is what people find tough, but these 2 were slightly easier out here. So these 10 questions is what you should have attempted, and then in the LOD 2 questions you could have gone for another 3 to 4 questions. So 14 attempts would be a very good performance as far as this section is also concerned. In general, if I were to rate this mock, I would say it was an extremely tough, challenging mock with an overall LOD of close to 2.2, 2.17 to be precise. All 3 sections were tough, though quant is mathematically qualified as moderate. I would say it was tougher than the exam. The number of good attempts for the 3 sections would be 13, 13, 14. So in general, 40 to 41 attempts or 42 attempts in this mock would be a very good performance as far as this mock is concerned. If you score less in this mock, please do not be disheartened because it was a challenge mock. If you do well, then be rest assured that you are actually on your way to do well as far as CAT is concerned. Wish you all the very best for CAT. Do well. You can subscribe to more videos of this type on our official channel. Thank you and wish you all the very best again.